So day one gave us a lot to think about, from new ideas to valuable connections, and today is all about building on that. This is where conversations go deeper, perspectives get sharper, and ideas turning into action. Throughout the day, you'll hear insights that challenge assumptions, spark new thinking, and help you look at leadership and growth through a different lens. As you engage, feel free to share your moments and takeaways at #CXO2Conf and bring others into your experience. We also want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our amazing sponsors. A special thank you to our gold sponsor, Tactical Rehabilitation, in collaboration with Brilliant Health Solutions. Our silver sponsors, EWA by R Evolution and Paul Mitchell Schools. And our bronze sponsors, Apogee Global RMS, Team Up Corp, and the Experience Group. Your support makes this conference possible and drives these powerful exchanges forward. And now, let's dive into the first session of the day, Boardroom Chess, How to Influence, Align, and Stay in Control. This session is designed to give you a front row seat to the strategies that top executives use to navigate complex boardroom dynamics. You'll gain insights on how to build influence without overstepping, align stakeholders with differing priorities, and steer discussions towards decisions that create meaningful impact. Our panelists bring a wealth of experience from diverse industries and leadership roles. They will share real-world examples, practical tactics, and insights you can apply immediately to your own leadership challenges. So get ready to take notes, ask questions, and absorb strategies that can help you lead with confidence, clarity, and control. Let's welcome our session's moderator, Nicole Banks, founder of the NICHEwork, and the panelists. Give them a huge round of applause. Thank you.
Alrighty, welcome to Boardroom Chess, How to Influence, Align, and Stay in Control, CXO Day 2. Because every boardroom is a chessboard, every person is a piece, and every conversation is a move. And whether you realize it or not, someone is controlling the board. The question, is it you? Today we're going to hear from leaders who don't just understand the game, they play it at the highest level. Let me introduce the players on the board. Sommer. She reads behavior like a grandmaster. She sees the patterns most people miss and understands how high performers either strengthen their position or give it away without even realizing it. Rasheeda Frazier. She's the one who aligns the pieces. When the board gets crowded with competing priorities, she brings structure and gets everyone moving in the same direction. Kilmer. He executes the game. He turns strategy into real moves, ensuring every piece knows its role and every decision actually drives results. Carlson. He plays defense and offense at the same time, always thinking several moves ahead. He sees the threats others miss and knows how to protect the board while still advancing it. Andreas Fornwald. He's playing on multiple boards at once. Global markets, high stakes, constant competition. He understands what it takes to win when the game is bigger than the room. And I'm Nicole Banks. I focus on how to read the board in real time, influence it, and drive the outcome. Now, here's what I want you to understand before we start. This is not a panel about ideas. This is a panel about moves, where control shifts, where decisions actually get made, and where most people lose the game without even realizing it. By the end of this conversation, you're going to see the board differently. You're going to recognize the moves that you've been missing, and you're going to walk into your next room ready to play at a completely different level. In the boardroom, the game is already happening. The moves are already being made. The only question is whether you know how to play it. Let's get into it. So I'm a chess nerd, and I will fully admit that this is going to be very chess themed, so come with me on this journey. We're going to have Andreas go ahead and introduce himself first. Andreas?
Yeah, so I would like to introduce myself first. I'm Andreas Fornwald, Chief Development Officer in StarCharge, 30 years in business and energy business with various companies as a CEO for private equity hold companies and then working in big conglomerates, German, Koreans, and Americans. So I would start to talk about how do we read the board across the markets and across different countries. And it's a challenge, and we have some things that we can change, and we have some things that we cannot change. In the global market, we have regulatory risk, we have geopolitics, we have market structure that's our given. This we cannot change, but when we can go to the markets, we definitely can find out what kind of decision-making process they are, what is their mentality, and what is their negotiation style and risk tolerance. We all see from the geopolitics there are various negotiation styles, and if we found this out, we will thrive. We will have a good relation with the board. It's very important to meet the board in person, to see the board in his country. If your work...
Amazing. Kevin, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Kevin Carlson. I'm a partner at TechCXO, which is a fractional consulting firm based in Atlanta. I've spent 40 years, just over 40 years now in the tech world. I started out as a software developer, worked my way up through the traditional ranks. 1999, took my first CTO role with a startup. And since that time, I've held 4 additional CTO and CISO roles, mostly with small to medium-sized businesses. So my perspective is coming from there. A lot of the boards that I've worked with over the years, and before I was a board member, I reported to a lot of boards and gave them updates as a CTO and a CISO. And so I really started to learn more about what was expected before I took my first board seat. So I look forward to the discussion.
Amazing. Martin?
Hi, I'm Martin Kilmer. I'm about 35-year tenure in legal tech. I'm a licensed attorney, but have for the last 25 years done a lot of product development, legal tech, and a variety of roles across large and small corporations. I spent about 25 years with Reed Elsevier and LexisNexis, rebuilding their core platform. And as part of that, had to discuss a lot of times or present a lot of times to the executive board of very large corporations. Also did a couple startups where the board dynamic is significantly different, up to going public with one, some M&A and sales, and so the relationship with the board becomes very, very important. I currently work for Gravis Law, which is a national law firm. We do mostly B2B, but some B2C. I have the underlying tech as a responsibility of mine because we have our own case management system that we also offer to the public. And again, a founder-created friends and family board. So across the whole dynamic, I have multiple layers of different kinds of board relationships. I currently serve as a COO, and in that role have a particular aspect or perception of how to deal with boards, particularly in a world where we're making it a chess game.
Amazing. Rasheeda?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rasheeda Frazier, and I am the founder and CEO of Empowering Greatness, Inc. I've got about a 30-year background in operations, administration at a senior level across corporations that I've worked with across industries. But being a founder and CEO for about the last 15 years. And I also sit on multiple boards, whether they are actual board seats and or advisory boards. And a lot of my clients are at board level and CEO level. So I bring a plethora of experience in how to strengthen, structure, and strategize movement in these systems and these ecosystems.
Love it. And Ann?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Sommer. I bring the mental game. So my specialty is perfecting the mental game. I've been in medicine and operating for about 30 years. So my training has been in the operating room. And the operating room is a tough board to manage. As a physician assistant, I'm the liaison. I'm the liaison between me and the surgeon and the patient and the rest of the team. So what do I bring now? I have Sommer coaching. I work with elite clientele basically to teach you the mental game, to get you out of the stories so that the conversation you're having is about the conversation. It's not about the conversation in your head that you're talking about. And that's my specialty.
Amazing. And my name's Nicole Banks. I'm founder of the NICHEwork. We're a business accelerator and networking platform with over 50,000 members in 78 countries. I also host Nicole's Business Notebook, a business development podcast focused on giving authentic and credible business promotion to leaders and founders. My background is in business development, sales, operations, marketing, writing. I've done it all. And I've worked with over 100 different companies to help them scale and grow. I've been called one of the top networkers in Arizona. I'm a multi-sales winner in multiple industries, and I want to work with you. My motto is, if you do your best, your very best, magical things can happen, especially when we build together. So this panel is going to be rapid-fire questions. We've designed it to kind of mimic a chess game. We're going to talk about the opening, the mid-game, what check looks like, checkmate, and how to win. The questions are designed to be about a minute long. We're going to get through as many as we can get through. If we have time at the end, we'll take questions. So come along with the journey. So we're going to start with Anne for the first question. Anne, in chess, strong players think several moves ahead. How do you train leaders to anticipate where conversations are going instead of reacting to them?
Okay, so I train leaders to not react. I've trained in high-pressure operating room situations, so a reaction creates loss of control. So under pressure, we all know that we need to anticipate. Anticipation is what is the conversation going. As leaders going into the boardroom, you have 3 questions. Ask yourself first, what is the problem I want solved? What is the best solution at the end of this boardroom or this meeting? And then who's going to make that next move? So the conversations in our head sound like this. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. And when you remove that loop, you're no longer reacting to the conversation at hand. You're now reacting to what is the solution at hand. And when we remove our mental loops, you now interact. And interacting becomes very simple because all you're focusing on are the questions. What is the next move? What's the best solution? Whose move is it? And when do I need to have it done? And that is a very simple thing to get an interaction, and that's anticipation.
I love it. Rasheeda, before the first move is made, how does a leader set the board to ensure alignment instead of conflict?
Ooh, the fun stuff. So it actually happens before they get into the room, right? When you think about, okay, I'm going in to lead this meeting to speak with a bunch of people who also have competing priorities, it really has to do with how you set the expectation before you get in the room. Who's going to be in the room? What is the messaging? A lot like what Ann just said, but it goes also a little deeper, right? Because everyone is coming in to solve a different solution. So alignment on the solution, on the activities, on what is happening has to happen before you even get in. And that's where clarity kind of sets in. So I think a good leader and a good board leader, what they would do, and at least in my experience, is set the tone by setting the agenda. A lot of people don't take the time to really do that. They just go in and go, hey, we're going to talk about these topics, and assumes that everyone knows exactly what's going to happen. But when you set the agenda, you set clear expectations on what the topics are, what you're going to discuss, and what you want the outcomes to potentially be, right? Because discussion does have to take place. There's a lot of overlap in terms of, and that gets into the nitty-gritty of it, but to start it off right and to start that alignment off right, you've got to set the stage and set that expectation for everyone before they even enter the room, so that everyone is clear once they get there and they're at the table.
I love that. So true. All right, Martin. From an operator's perspective, how do you set the board so the organization is positioned to win before the first move is even made?
That's a great question. From an operational perspective, it's really about communication and making sure that you understand the vision of the board, the executive chairman, and take that all the way through the organization. Without that clear strategy, it's impossible to communicate to the organization and get alignment for them to try and achieve the objectives that the board desires. This is why you take your board minutes, you take your town halls. They reflect everything that's gone on in the board meetings and the overall strategy so that you can communicate the why. The why is what's really important from an operational perspective to ensure that you have alignment across the whole organization. My role is in a game like this and in the boardroom is being the source of truth. Every game has rules. With what Rasheeda said, when you go into the board meeting, it's understanding their expectations, understanding what they need to see from a data perspective, and providing actually the truth. So you're communicating. Everyone has an agenda, whether they're in the boardroom or in the file clerk room, and making sure that you're all aligned on the goals and objectives from a strategic standpoint has to flow all the way through the organization and has to be repeated constantly. We used to carry three little cards in our wallets with the core values of the organization and give them out to everyone in the organization so there is no question about what the board and the organization as a whole is trying to accomplish.
Great point. Kevin, how do you help leadership teams think beyond the obvious moves and prepare for what's coming next?
So being on a board is not a static position. You have to constantly learn. And if you're not learning about the industry that the company's operating in, you're not learning about what affects that industry, then you're not really prepared. So I really think this is an education issue for board members. They have to be committed to learning. They have to constantly learn. They can't just show up once a quarter, give their opinions and leave. That's just very little value. So for me, it's all about education and then passing that education along to the leaders of the company.
I love that. Andreas, how do cultural differences impact how the game is played and how leaders should move?
Say it again.
How do cultural differences impact how the game is played and how should leaders move?
Yeah, so the different cultural differences are bigger than we expect. And the board, even they all speak English, and you go in countries, you go in Japan, you go in China. China is a special case. You need to understand what is the negotiation culture in the country. You also need to teach them, if you are working in America, that America is different. And you can do in America the things only in American way. Because the word global is losing its meaning in the current world. We are not a global world anymore. We are a post-global world. That means national tendencies are strong. We see it every day. And that you see reflected when you go in China. They want to do it the Chinese way in America or somewhere else. And you have just to tell them, simple. You cannot drive on the right side in Australia, so you cannot drive on the left side in the United States. It's just different, but in a polite, nice way. And this is the art of the deal, how to put our culture in their perspective.
I love that. All right, so we're going to come back this way. So, Andreas, back to you.
Yes.
What's your approach to staying ahead of competitors who are also playing aggressively in global markets?
So you have to understand the drivers of the market. You have to understand if your products are ready for the market. Be ready for the market. You go in this market, you have to see, do you have the right structure? Do you have the right sales guy? Can you execute local by not compromising your so-called global goals? Can you have the right connections local? And if your products or whatever services you sell are well received, you have to do this research before you even start. Then if you enter wrong, you'll never be successful.
Great point. All right, Kevin. In chess, great players anticipate threats several moves ahead. How do you train leaders to do that in real-time decision-making?
You can't be nearsighted. End of story, right? I mean, you have to look beyond what your immediate concerns are. So, a good CEO, any good corporate leader, I think, is, I've mentioned it before, education, right? But you have to pay attention to what's going on in the company. You have to be a good listener. If you're not a good listener, if you're listening to respond versus listening to learn, then you're probably not going to notice the things that you should be picking up on that are going on inside the company, or with your partners, or with your clients. So for me, it comes down to listening, spotting things that it might seem a little bit out of character or not exactly where you want them to go, and then, adjusting the plan accordingly.
Yep, I love that. Martin, how do you maintain operational discipline when the pressure to move fast starts to override strategic thinking?
I think it goes back to the very first thing that we talked about, and that is really understanding the strategic vision of the organization. If it's articulated and it's down on paper, then you go back to that plan. You encourage them through data and information and reports to follow along the plan that's been there and to discuss what it would take to change that plan. If we're looking far ahead and we're determining what's going to happen or the market conditions change, then you have a dialogue. And I think one of the things that's really important about those boardrooms is saying, here's where we started, here's what's happening over the past 4 quarters, here's where we intend to go. Do we have an exit strategy? Do we have, what's our 3 and 5 year plan? How are we trying to get there? You set a strategy, you work towards it, you put real data in front of them, and then you have an open dialogue, which is critical. And you maintain that by putting those rules in place, referring back, and not letting your board become chaotic by not focusing back on the overall strategic plan.
Yep, definitely agree. Rasheeda, how do you create shared context quickly so everyone is playing the same game, not different ones?
Ooh, shared content. So I think that's kind of one of those leadership skills that a lot of people overlook when you think about it. A lot of leaders expect everyone around them to kind of read minds and know. And it just doesn't work like that in the real world. When you have a situation where people don't know where we are, where we're going, what we're trying to solve, again, you're going to hear these things over and over because they really are that important. And it really goes to the communication piece. It goes to kind of setting the stage for what comes next. When people don't have that level of clarity and shared thought about whatever it is that they're talking about within the organization across that board level so that it can trickle down, what begins to happen then is people begin to fill in the gaps with what they think as opposed to what actually is. So it really starts from the top when the leader can say, hey, this is exactly the road that we need to take. And this is where I need extra thought leadership around what it's going to take to get here and how we're going to solve for A when we're already at X, Y, and Z. And so if the leader can come in and set that tone and really align everybody in that way, that's how you begin to share kind of like the context and the content of the conversation, of the decisions that need to be made, of the things that are happening. It starts from the top because everyone else is looking to you as the leader, to looking whomever is in that room that is making and influencing what is happening. They're looking for them to actually lead. So they have to be able to share first in order to be able to lead.
And you talk about high-pressure performers having OCD tendencies. How does that show up as predictable patterns on the board that others can exploit?
I'm not touching that.
High performers. Who here is a high performer? Yeah, you should all be raising your hand. You wouldn't be sitting in this room if you weren't a high performer. You do not have a performance issue. You have a repeating pattern issue. OCD is obsessive compulsive disease. None of you have this, but we have tendencies. It looks like overthinking, over-preparing, over-explaining,
Yes.
and even worse, rechecking your work, the same thing 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Because here's the problem, is the loop in your head says, what if I get this wrong? But the underlying thing is you never do get it wrong, right? So if I'm playing chess, I'm in a boardroom, I'm in an operating room, I'm having a conversation, and you've shown me you're repeating patterns, I can predict your next move. If I'm in a boardroom and I know that you avoid conflict, I control the conversation. If I know you hesitate, I can rush you. What I train leaders is to remove the loop. Because once you stop repeating the pattern, you're no longer predictable, and that is power. Now you control the board and you maintain it. And also, when you're talking about upper level talking, in medicine, we call that layman's terms. You need to talk to everybody like they're a 5-year-old or in their 5th grade. You go into your doctor and I'm using words like bowel movement, and you're looking at me, I'm like, when's the last time you had a number 2? These are very different and strategic things. So when you're explaining things to anybody and everybody, you need to use the words and the terms that they understand. And if they're not understanding them, then ask and listen. And the listening means take some notes. What are they interpreting? But that's it. You don't have a performance problem, you have a repeating pattern problem.
I love that. Definitely got called out by Ann on that one. Okay, my question is, what are the first signals that you read to understand how the pieces are arranged and who actually controls the center? So for me, it's all about the preparation before I even enter the room. I've already done the research. I already know who the decision maker is. I already know who influences them. And I also know who has been in the room the longest. I also know who's most likely to speak last. And when I go into the room, I'm just confirming what I've already done the research on. The other thing I look for is who's talking, who's interrupting, and who's not being interrupted. I think that's something that in the actual moment you can take heed of to help you to guide you in that conversation. And then also who at the end of the day is the last person to talk, because you need them to talk to finish the conversation. So using that strategy to get that person who needs to make the decision to be the one moving, I've already done the research. And so for me, that path actually has a mission, and I think that's what makes it successful. So we're gonna start going through the other way now. So my next question is, how do you know when it's time to move from strategy to final execution? I will say I come from a sales background, so I always am closing. I am always trying to find the decision that is going to make them do the thing that I want them to do. Obviously, use discretion and do it right, but I'm always closing. Because if a deal can make good in 10 minutes, it's much better than 10 hours. And if you continue the conversation past the close, you're more likely to lose them, and I want to get the close to happen and then go on to the next thing as fast as possible. I also want to set expectations so they know what to expect, and then already plant the seed. How can I make them my best customer? How can I make this the best deal? How can I have them be my best partner? Because the work doesn't end when the deal is made, it's just starting. All right, so next question is to Ann. When egos collide, how do you neutralize the board without escalating the tension?
Egos. Who's ever run into an ego here? Everybody, right?
Every single person.
We all have an ego. Egos aren't about the ego. So, again, you've gone into the boardroom, you know what problem you want solved, you know that a decision needs to be made, who's going to take that, and then when is it going to get done. When two people go into a conflict because of egos, I think, and what I see is that leaders' mistake is they try to manage the people. It's not about the people, it's about the ego. And the ego is telling these two people they're at risk of losing something. They're at risk of losing control, they're at risk of losing respect or positioning. So you can't fuel an ego with your own ego. You're just going to take the chessboard and all the pieces are going to fall. But if you redirect them with, what is the solution we're trying to come to right now? Or the question, hey, what's the problem we're solving right now? Now you've just removed the emotion. Ego's all about emotion. So now the board and everybody is back on the task, and the person, the leader that can manage the egos without losing control and becoming more emotional controls the board.
I love that. Rasheeda, what's the role of clarity in ensuring every piece knows its function and contribution?
Probably the most important role out of a lot of what we're saying here. You could have the most talented individuals inside of the room, but if they are not clear on what their role is and what it is that they're doing, it is going to cause utter and total chaos, right? Because people are not going to understand what they're supposed to do. When it is clear, the directions are clear, the communication is clear, everyone has an assigned deliverable at the end of the conversation, that clarity actually helps to move people out of that room into execution, as opposed to out of that room into something totally different. How many have had meetings? You go in, you're in the conversation, everything seems okay, we have a plan, and then you come out and you're utterly confused. You don't know what's next. None of that was touched. So when you have that lack of clarity, it stalls everything. And then you're on this hamster wheel again because you're having another meeting just to gain clarity about what it should have already been clear from the first meeting. So it really goes back to owning the room, owning the lanes, keeping people in check, making sure that there's nobody stepping over boundaries, trying to monopolize the conversation, making it very clear to each individual who has a key stake in whatever it is that is going to be the outcome, that they know exactly what it is that they are supposed to and expected to do and how to execute it, so that when they leave, they have a plan of action as opposed to a plan of confusion.
I love that. So a question for you, Martin, same vein, but on teams. How do you ensure every team understands their role as a piece contributing to the overall strategy?
I think it's very important that same kind of thing. You do articulate roles and responsibilities. I often try and do that visually. I like to have workflow, mindjet, other charts about how the organization and how the team members fit within the overall objective and plan to get from A to B, or A to Z in this particular case. In doing so, you give them self-worth, you give them the ability to understand how they contribute to that, you give them an alignment with the overall strategy, and therefore they're able to see how they fit within it, and then you also put the circles in the middle, the gaps, and how the two sides between the next lines come together and have those conversations, or what are the discussion points to allow you to also get their contribution. It's incredibly important, whether in the boardroom or in the teams, that people feel like they're contributing to some of the decisions that are being made, that they're contributing to the value and proposition. People want to feel that they are part of an organization and contribute to its overall success. And the best way to do that is really to lay out the overall strategy and structure and be able to say to someone, this is where you fit. It's in the boardroom as well. We just talked about it. We talked about if you're a board member, you need to understand the industry. It's the same thing. You need to understand the people in the room, their role, their characteristics. We haven't yet talked about how you found a board and how you create one. We're assuming they're already in place. The other piece of this is when you're building your board, make sure you understand what you're trying to build. Do you want a bunch of yes people? Do you want the catalyst person? Do you want the moderator? Because all those are components in your board dialogue and dimensions that you really need to take into consideration when you're building out your board. And it's the same thing with your team members.
I love that. Kevin, how do you communicate risk in a way that drives action instead of fear or avoidance?
Wow. You know, risk is, I think, one of the top responsibilities of a board, just understanding what it is, understanding what the bigger risk is, the industry, the economy, things like that. But the way to communicate it to me is just like, I can't remember who said it earlier, but it was, somebody made a comment about you have to say, I think it was Ann, say things in a way that other people understand them, right? Risk is no different. You have to put the risk into a frame of reference that somebody else can understand. So myself as a technologist and a security guy, you know, if I'm talking to somebody that's got a finance background, you know, I can't start, you know, going on about 0 days and architecture and stuff like that. I have to frame it in a way that it's going to make sense to them. So for finance, it's going to be cost and it's going to be longer term benefit. For operations, it might be efficiency. So it's properly framing the risk so other people hear it and they understand it. That's, to me, is the clearest way.
I love that. Andreas, you've led turnarounds. What's the first move you make when walking into a losing position?
Sorry?
You've led turnarounds. What's
Yeah.
the first move you make when walking into a losing position?
And the first, when I'm a turnaround, so first you have to figure out if your company has the cash payments for the next 4 to 6 weeks. That's imperative, because if you walk in a turnaround and there is no money there, you will walk out instantly. So you have to secure the company for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Then you do your assessment. You understand what is going wrong and what is going right. And every company has a lot of issues. And I can promise you 99% of the company do not have a market issue or a product issue. They have a personal issue. There are people who are not acting together. There are people who are not working together. There are people who are not aligned. So you have the turnaround. You have your 6 weeks to go, and then you start digging in. Every day you talk with people, spend a lot of time talking with different people, compare the notes, compare what is going on, and then go in the processes. Next is processes. Are the processes, the standard operation procedures right? You know it from your previous companies. Make a benchmark. What is going good, what is not going good. If it's a manufacturing company, it's pretty simple. If it's a distribution, it may be a little bit more complicated. If it's a global organization, then the complexity is high, but still do it. And after you achieve your first assessment, you have to go to the board and say, that's my plan. I need so much money to get it done and make it lean. And if you get it approved, half of the turnaround is done. If you don't, I wouldn't stay in this company. I would say it very clearly. I would say very clearly, if you don't have enough means, you just waste your time.
I love that. All right, so this will be our last question, so more of a quick fire. Andreas, if you had to define the one move that separates good operators from true global strategists, what would it be?
One move, there are many bold moves, so one move, it's hard to do the move, but it's probably to realign your team, to assess who are the key employees, who are the key achievers, and don't hesitate if you do your due process to fire people, but fire them nicely.
There we go.
You start with getting the assessment and getting the best people in front and get rid of the people who are not a fit for organization, and especially for toxic people. Toxicity, one toxic guy influences 10 good guys.
Yep, very true. Kevin, how does a strong endgame look like from a risk and security standpoint?
I think a strong end game is about having those things in balance. If you lead too much, with security, other things are going to suffer. I go into companies that a lot of them, post data breach as a consultant, not as a board member. And one of the things I see a lot of times is they throw everything at security, and then the business becomes, operationally inefficient because all the resources are applied there. So in the same way on a board, you have to have a balance between those things to be efficient and to be operational. I think that's the ultimate state right there. But I do want to say one additional thing. When you're presenting these ideas in a board context, is everybody here familiar with the concept of radical candor? So this is where egos go away, right? So if you can care personally and you can challenge directly, then that's going to frame things right. You're going to present things the right way, and you can, hopefully rid yourself of the egos that are going to cause this imbalance in approach.
I love that. All right, Martin, how do you maintain control of the board when integrating teams, system, and cultures during rapid change?
I want to Andreas this question. This is the art, not a science. And the reality is, again, you have to motivate them individually while thinking strategically. The way that you motivate people during those rapid changes is to explain to them the reason that it's happening. We have this today. On this panel, we haven't said the two-letter word yet, which is amazing. But we know that there's rapid change. You articulate it. You put it in the context for people of their personal lives and things that happen to them. I do everything pretty much in my career through analogy. and talk to people about what's happening outside their work environment, but what's happening in their personal environment, and then how they can understand the need for change. If you're as old as me, you've read Who Moved My Cheese, and some of those. Change has been happening for generations, and it's really about putting it in context for them and explaining to them why change is happening and getting their understanding. People are incredibly resilient when it comes to change as long as you're communicating effectively, telling them their place, and letting them know how they contribute to it and be successful.
Great point. Rasheeda, what does checkmate look like when alignment, clarity, and execution are all achieved?
It looks like follow through, not just agreement. It looks like everyone walking out of the room knowing exactly what it is that needs to be accomplished, knowing exactly what their role is, knowing exactly what action that they need to take with their teams. It's knowing that we don't have to have a second meeting, that we can just really move and jump into exactly what it is. And to me, that's good alignment. I kind of answered this a little bit in my last question, but it really does make that clarity piece, right? Real alignment is clarity. It is everyone on the same page, on the same docket, all the boxes are ticked, and there are no more questions. There is simply just execution, and there's momentum behind that execution because people are excited now. I know what to do. There's no longer any confusion. So to me, that's real alignment. And if you can walk out of any board meeting and then even down to the teams level, like Martin said, and get them flowing based off of what just happened here, that's alignment across industry, that's alignment across departments, that's alignment within the whole organization. And that just makes for a really sweet deal and a great working environment.
I love that. Anne, what's the biggest mistake leaders make in the end game of a meeting that weakens execution afterward?
The biggest mistake we all make, we've already all said it, is that we all end with an agreement and not a decision. Everybody nods, everybody feels good, but no decision was made. And the biggest problem with that is you didn't answer the questions from the beginning, is what is the problem we're solving? What's the solution? Who owns it? And when? And why do we avoid this? Because it's uncomfortable. We avoid that last 5 minutes of tension.
Yeah.
Well, let's agree and we'll come back. No, you need a decision because that is the moment. If it's not a little uncomfortable, it wasn't clear enough. The other thing is I'm going to give you, when we're talking about listening and communicating, the other mistake I see is that we talk to people, but we don't listen to them. Here's a very simple thing. If you've got egos, you've got the people who aren't on board, you bring them in, you just ask them, tell me what you think, okay? And you listen. Do not talk. Just write notes down. Now, here's the very important question. I want you to write this down is, what I hear you saying is blank. I will guarantee you they will look at you like, what are you talking about? Because it's a misinterpretation of what they're thinking and what you're saying and what you're thinking and what they're saying. What I hear you saying is blank. Is that what you mean? And that's going to get rid of almost all of the conflicts, so everybody's on your team, and it quickly resolves the listening and the misinterpretation. So a decision and the listening skills, what I see is the biggest problem.
I love that. Perfect. And I will have my last question. I'll make it quick. If you had to define the one move that consistently wins the game, what would it be? You walk in expecting to win. You don't take your foot off the gas, and you don't stumble into winning. You play the game, and then you earn it. So to close, every boardroom is a chessboard. And whether you realize it or not, the game is already being played. Positions are being taken, decisions are being shaped, and control is already shifting. The difference, some people are making moves, and some people are waiting. So as you walk into your next room, don't just show up informed, show up ready to move. In the end, you don't win by understanding the game, you win by playing your best game when it matters. A big thank you to Anne, Rasheeda, Martin, Kevin, and Andreas. I'm Nicole Banks, and again, welcome to CXO Day 2 2.0. Thank you so much.